Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Strong hands, good for shoveling snow. Uh-huh. You're late.
I was stuck behind. So if I just make a quick announcement?
Sure, sure. How do you do?
All right, any students who are students of Dr. Gray, he's got a sign-in sheet over where the gentlemen are currently signing in. And anybody who is with Dr. Clary or in my class, there's a computer printout sign-in sheet over there. Just make sure if your teacher wants you here, that you bring that sugar to sign in. And then grab your refreshments if you want something. And we'll start in just a couple minutes as soon as you play session. How are you guys doing? Okay, good. Staying warm?
Hey, girls.
How are you doing, sister? Good. Good.
All right. Is it okay if should I wait? Do you want me to wait?
Well,
or do you have?
I don't care. You decide.
How about if I start with?
It'll take a while for them to sit down.
Yeah. Okay. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
That's great. It's a pleasure to have you in town.
Thank you. Thank you.
How's the adjustment from Chicago to a small town?
Well, we live differently. I mean, I live differently in Chicago.
I'm sorry. Do they already have you mic'd?
Yeah, I'm mic'd.
Okay. So the two things I wanted to say today about you were that you're president of the Catholic Biblical Association.
I was.
Which seems like an incredibly high honor. Like if we take a moment to appreciate, like that's a pretty.
They take a collection.
And then the other one was, it looks like you served for almost 30 years with the Chicago Catholic
Jewish scholars.
Is that the correct?
Yeah,
Yeah. And was that just a group that would meet?
regularly. Yeah.
And I think given that it's, Holocaust Remembrance
I'm
Day.
going to say something about that.
Okay, good. Yeah, very good. It always blows my mind when I ask my kids.
They don't know anything about it.
I know they have Schindler's List, like the older ones, because I said it's not the same if you hear about it. You kind of need an introduction. So they might be writing their whole life story over there, I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know who they're with.
Do you want me to move this so you can
No.
get in between?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, move it just over a little bit. Thank you.
How's it turn out for a cold day?
It's nice, yeah.
I require my kids to brush their teeth. It's an idea that they should agree with, but they don't always. So sometimes they don't know what's good for you. Looks like maybe 1 minute. What do you think?
It's great to see you. I'm trying to see what a plan, who's going to start to challenge you a lot today. Luke's gone. That one lady up here from the Lutheran, she's not sitting there, so I'm wondering where that's coming today.
Who's the lady from the...
Remember last time she had said what we,
Oh, yeah.
and then you sat back and said, okay. And that's where the quote came up.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it? Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So it's great to see you.
Good, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
I know, right? This is good.
All right, thank you for coming and welcome everybody to our next installation of the Sister Dianne Bergant series on the Catholic intellectual tradition. So today's topic is going to be about the integral relationship with the Catholic Church, and Sister Dianne will enlighten all of us, as she always does. And today, as a way of introduction, because I think we've got some new people with us, it's important and good for us to understand who is speaking. So this is like a hot tip in life. Whenever you go and hear something, you might as well find out more about who is speaking so you can understand what their expertise is and where they're coming from with what their information is. So Sister Dianne Bergant, for those of you who don't know her, is an extremely accomplished academic in biblical scholarship. And I want to highlight just two things today. One is that there are a number of biblical scholars in the Catholic Church in America, and of all of them, Sister Dianne Bergant served the Catholic Biblical Scholarship Association as president. And I think that that's worth knowing and worth understanding so that you have context of her in terms of her peers in academia. And the second thing I wanted to highlight for you tonight is that as we're celebrating and observing, I guess, this week of Holocaust remembrance, I wanted to point out a very significant contribution she's made, which is she served for almost 30 years in the Catholic and Jewish dialogue in Chicago. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sister. She is never short on what she can share with us, so I don't want to eat up too much time. Just let's give her a big welcome and thanks for being here.
All right, thank you very much. Since Dianne has already mentioned Holocaust, I was going to have it woven somehow into what I was saying, but I'll say something about it at the beginning and then go on with the topic here. 81 years, and it would be very interesting to find out how many people really know what happened with the Holocaust. There was, and I think it is essential at this moment in the history of the United States that we understand what went on, not just at the time of the Holocaust, but previous to the Holocaust, what developed into the Holocaust. There is a poem that you may have come across if you've been looking, if you know anything about the Holocaust. It was written, I can't remember exactly the date, but it was written by a Lutheran minister who himself, earlier in his life, had Nazi sympathies. And he wrote, not really a poem, a statement that has been used over and over again, and in a certain sense rewritten over and over again. And it comes under several titles as well, but the title I will use is, "At First They Came for the Jews." Now maybe some of you have come across this, but it is very, very profound. At first they came for the Jews. I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't stand up. And then they came for the communists, but I wasn't a communist, so I didn't stand up. And then they came for the trade unionist, but I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't stand up. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to stand up. We are facing that in our country today. Anti-Semitism is not dead. Every once in a while, somebody tries to burn down the synagogue. Anti-Semitism is not dead. What are we doing? How are we standing up? Government members of our government have no problem at all calling people vile names. And at a certain time in history, the worst thing you could, in my history, the worst thing you could call a person was a communist. And what are we doing about what people call each other names because they disagree with each other? And trade unionist, a unionist, is really a socialist. And we're not allowed to be socialistic in this country. DEI is a kind of socialism. In a certain sense, the Roman Catholic Church is based on the values of DEI. The values, inclusivity, equality. Every religious community of men or women lives socialism. A kind of family, every family is socialistic, that we have everything together. We hold things together. Now there are problems, no question about that. There are, push anything to the extreme and it's a problem. But to automatically dismiss these values because it does not favor the privileged. And what makes some people privileged? Color of your skin. Some of you got the wrong color of skin. Some of you don't have the same the right ethnic background, I'll bet. Some of you don't have the right relatives. Are you in the right political party? Who has the right to say, you got to be like me or you're not important? And not only not important, you got to be like me or we're going to get rid of you. That is going on in our country. So, at first they came for the Mexicans. And I'm not Mexican, so I didn't stand up. And then they came for the Somali, but I'm not Somali, so I didn't stand up. And then they came for the gays, but I'm not gay, so I didn't stand up. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to stand up. That's what the Holocaust is all about. What brought that on? And it's in our country. And that's the world that you are going to step into. The question is, are you prepared? Take very seriously as you look at the Holocaust this week. Take very seriously. It's not simply an event of the past. It's still going on. Or it's going on again. It's going on again. On that happy note, today we want to talk about the title of this Catholic intellectual tradition is Integral Relationship to the Catholic Church. I find that a very strange phrase. Integral relationship with the Catholic Church. What we're talking about is that the Catholic intellectual tradition is integral. There's an integral relationship with the Catholic Church. Relationship means if you've at least two realities. On one reality, you got the Catholic Church. Given what this statement says, with what is the Catholic Church related? You can't say Catholic intellectual tradition because that's the Catholic Church. So with what is the Catholic Church related? Now a lot depends upon what dimension of reality you're thinking about. For this afternoon, we're going to be talking about culture. There is an intimate relationship with the Catholic Church and culture. But even that notion of relationship, I'm uncomfortable with. Now you can be comfortable with it. I'm not saying you have to think as I do. But let me explain why I'm uncomfortable with it. When we talk about a relationship, we are presuming separation. Separation that comes together. But we're presuming separation. I don't believe that there is that separation. I think that when we talk about the intellectual tradition of the Catholic Church, that's the Catholic Church. Where is the intellectual tradition of the Catholic Church? Please don't say books. It's in you and me. It's within us. I used an expression in some talk. I know I did in some talk. It may have been last time, but it certainly is going to be this time. That is the definition of theology. Faith seeking understanding. I want to say culture, as I did before. We want to talk about culture. What is culture? Culture is a set of systems that we share, of systems of thought. We have a part of our culture is geographic. Part of our culture is social. In a certain sense, you belong to an entirely different culture than I belong to. Because of age, because of lifestyle. So culture is a set of system, of ideas, of beliefs. All right? And what we do is the way each one of us is brought into the reality of our culture is the way we are shaped by that culture. So when we talk about culture, and that's what we're going to be talking about, or what I'm going to be talking about this afternoon, sometimes the culture that I'm going to be talking about is a political culture. What I said earlier was political culture. When I talked about our country and the values of our country, or what's going on in our country today, you knew what I was talking about. Because it's yours as well. And yet I don't even know you. How can we share anything? Because we have been shaped internally by a common culture. There's a culture in a family. Now, growing up in a family, you get to know differences. We are not always aware of similarities. Because similarities simply tell us this is the way we do it. And in a certain sense, I'd be willing to bet that with every single family represented in this room today, I could say something about what my mother used to say, and you would recognize it immediately. Maybe not the same words, but as long as you're living under my roof, I think every parent says that. But we know what it means. But if you go into another culture, they may not know what it means. They may interpret it literally. We have humor. We share humor. I am told, and this has been my experience as well, when you learn a second language, one of the hardest things to learn is humor. We don't understand their humor because the humor belongs to the culture, not just the language. Language is part of it, but the humor belongs to the culture as well. And I'm not a philosopher of culture, but just reflecting on how I understand culture. I can't believe it's that different from how you understand culture. There are some societies where the primary mode of transportation is a bicycle. Not this society, but it used to be. So culture can change as well. And individuals can change culture. Look at Washington. Within a very short time, much in our culture has changed. From just a handful of people. Now, why is that possible? I don't have an answer. There are a lot of answers. I don't have one that I'm sure of. I don't know why that is. But it possibly could be it's because, as the saying said, I didn't stand up. I didn't stand up when I should have. And things happened that should not have happened. And how often have we not heard, that's not the way we do things in America. Oh, yes, it is. And evidence is that it's happened. By God, that is the way we do things. Maybe it's not the way we should do things, but that's the way we do things. Or people would say, that's not America. Well, it sure is not France. Of course it's America. That's all, we're watching a change of culture. You are participating in it. You are shaping it as well, the way you respond to it. The way you respond to it really indicates whether you accept it, you refuse it. I put this up here, faith seeking understanding. This is a definition of religious culture called theology. Faith, whatever that faith is, seeking. Theology is always active. Seeking is an active form of the verb. It's ongoing. If all you think about theology is precepts of doctrine, all that is precepts of doctrine. Important, very important. But theology is the way we grapple with reality. We are Christians, I am presuming all. We are all Christians. Why was it during the Second World War? Why was it at the time of the Holocaust? Why was it Christian countries let that happen? Why was that? Why was it that Christians stood and did nothing? Are they going to say that in history about our civilization, our time in history? This is all going on now. And the question is, how do we deal with this religiously? Not necessarily with doctrine, but again with what we understand as, what does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to have human values? What are human values? In what do we owe each other? And that's an easy question to answer. We owe respect. Every one of us is a human being with the dignity of human being. From a religious point of view, we say image of God. We are created in the image of God. And I spent an hour talking about that. I'm not going to rehearse it again. But very simply, it's the whole question. I thought I heard my telephone. I'm sorry. It's the whole question of how do we treat each other, and why do we treat each other that way? Because of color? Because of size? We had nothing to do with where we were born. Why should we be punished because we were not born with the same cultural or racial or ethnic background? And yet that's what we do to each other. Again, that's all in our culture, because it's very much in our history and also in our present. It's up to you and me. It's up to us to make sure it's not functioning as well in the future. That's the challenge. Welcome to the game. That is the challenge of today. In the church, in the country, and in the world. Now I'm talking theology, but I'm also talking culture, because in its best moments, our culture says we are all created equal. Remember when you were in grade school, or I doubt that whether you do it anymore, the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Liberty and justice for all. That is part of our cultural heritage. But it's also a theological statement. So there are times when you do not separate what you believe religiously or theologically from what you believe as an American citizen. There's no separation. And it's because, who do you think are the ones in the Catholic Church who make the connections? Other human beings who benefit from what the Constitution says, what the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag says, and the Church says the same thing. They're not always in sync. There are times when the Church stands up and criticizes, and that's good. And there are also times when society stands up and criticizes the Church, and that's good as well. Because the Church is made up of human beings who make mistakes. And as I said, it was Catholics, countries, that were responsible for the Holocaust. And, you're old enough, to have heard about sexual abuse by clergy and cover up by the Church. So it's not always good against bad. It's not always that clear. Sometimes it's bad against bad. So getting back to this statement of what theology is all about. Notice, it's faith. What do you believe about God? Just think about that for a moment. Where is heaven? Where is heaven? I'm always not surprised. I want to always smile at a basketball game when somebody makes a beautiful, three-pointer. And I'm thinking, what are they looking at? The roof. When you think about that, and this is not, I'm not saying anything that's disrespectful. A theologian friend of mine once said, think about the ascension of Jesus. Now, part of our religious tradition, Jesus ascended into heaven. And what do the holy cards show us? He's going up in the air into the clouds. Now, my theologian friend said, now, if that's really what happened, what we know about cosmology and what we know about the gravitational pull of the earth, unless he has hit something out in space, he is still shooting out in space, and the further he gets away from Earth, the faster he's going, with Mary and her Assumption right behind him. Now, does that mean that I don't believe in those things? What do those things mean? That's faith seeking understanding. If we believe that Jesus rose from the dead, what does that mean? It's got to be more than, an empty tomb. What does that mean? Faith seeking understanding. If he's ascended into heaven, it's metaphorical language. It's beautiful imagery. It's poetry. But what does it mean? And I want to say, the older we get, the more experience in life that we have, the more we think about things like this in a different way. We're always seeking understanding. We know a little bit now and a little bit more when we're in our 30s, and a little bit more when we're in our 50s. About everything. We know a little bit more about our faith. We know a little bit more about our culture. But it's an ongoing knowing. It's an ongoing struggle with. What's it all about? Or to quote the movie, what's it all about, Alfie? What is life all about? You think you got it set. I remember when I was lying in bed as a child, probably in 4th grade. That's when kids usually become theologians, when they're in 4th grade, to make sense out of things. And I remember as a 4th grader, it was such an experience to me. I figured out the relationship between earth and heaven. I remember figuring that out. I think, what a dumb kid now. But then I had it all figured out. But I had it figured out as a 4th grader would understand it. I should have had a deeper insight when I was 14 or when I was 24. And now I can laugh at that kid. It was a way of falling asleep. That's the benefit that came from that magnificent insight. We constantly learn more as we constantly get deeper understanding and involvement in our culture. Let me read the definition. This is simply the title of the talk. Let me read the definition. Integral relationship to Catholic Church. I've already told you I don't think that's a good way of saying it, because I don't think they're separate. Catholicism honors the intellect and appreciates the importance of knowledge in all areas. There was a time when, because of what science was claiming, at the beginning of the scientific age, because of what science was claiming, it was challenging the understanding, the church's definition of heaven, hell, purgatory, those kinds of things, of judgment. It was challenging because science was discovering things about the natural world. For example, you read a scientific book about the appearance, I don't know what other word to use, but the appearance of human beings, of the human species, Homo sapiens. Well, it talks all about evolution. But the Bible says that God did this. God took dirt, dust, and shaped a man, and then blew him up. Blew into the lungs. So you've got two different stories that don't fit together. That was the beginning when science and religion clashed. And that was not too long ago, until we realized that the story that we find in the Bible is just that. It's a beautiful, poetic story. But you do not read poetry in the same way as you read science. You know that. You read science and you understand science in an entirely different way than you do poetry. And think of the biblical stories as religious poetry. What does it mean that God took the dust of the earth? It means that you and I are made of the stuff of the earth. That's good science. It doesn't tell us how we were made. It tells us what we were made of. And that God blew them up. That there's a breath of life within us. And that breath of life, where is it? We're not talking about the lungs. We're talking about what makes us a human being. There's so much about every one of us that we cannot touch. But it's real. If you've ever loved a human being, you cannot put that in a box. And you can't even, chances are, you can't even describe it with words. But it's real. And no one can tell you it's not. If you've ever had a near-death experience, I've never had a near-death experience, but I have heard people describe it. Invariably, they say, I can't describe it. There are no words. There are things about us that cannot be described, but they're real. There's a transcendent dimension to us that's more than physical. Where is our intelligence? The brain operates it, but the brain is not our intelligence. Where's all the stuff you know? Where do you carry it? Where is it? Is it in your head? I mean, ask a brain surgeon if they ever found it. Where is it? But you know it's real. So there are things about us, profound things about all of us. We know it's real, even though we can't put words to it, because it's beyond, it is transcendent. There's a transcendent dimension to each one of us. Now, I ask you, is that a scientific statement? Is that a cultural statement? Is that a theological statement? And the answer is yes. All three of them. Exactly. And we all have them. All of us, not only those who have the right shaped nose, not only those whose texture of their hair is nice and soft. All of us are like that. All of us have that mystery about them. You have to learn to be prejudiced. Watch little children. You have to be taught to dislike or to hate somebody because of the color of their skin, or the way they talk, or their food. You have to be taught that. Now, some is taste, no question about it. Not every diet would necessarily, what shall I say, excite me. But I could learn. I always figure if somebody else can learn it, I can learn it. And that's not because I'm wonderful. It's because put me in the right place, and there are some things that simply happen, like eat. And then you will discover it's better to eat something you may not like in the beginning to never eat than to never eat again. All right. So we're talking about integral relationship. Catholicism honors the intellect. That's a strange statement. Why would it not? It sounds so separate, and they're not separate. What the Catholic Church teaches, what Christians teach, what Jews teach, what religious people teach is human beings are valuable. Human beings are exceptional. We must cherish human beings. All societies teach that. Appreciate the importance of knowledge in all areas. I wonder what's going to happen with theology and history when, let's say, not if, but when we find intelligent life someplace else. That will be interesting, because all of our thinking uses Earth as the context of development. Well, what if Earth's not the only place where there's intelligent life? And what if there's intelligent life smarter than us? Yes, that's possible. What would happen then? Everything would be brand new. And there would be half of the community would be scared to death, or maybe more than half. And the others, the rest of the community, excited about something new. The Catholic, CIT means Catholic intellectual tradition, grows out of this appreciation of knowledge for the purpose of helping people to serve well in the world. And that's important, not just to serve well, to live fruitful lives and all that that entails. The Catholic tradition of higher education, that's you, offers an invitation to students, scholars, and staff to think seriously about religious and spiritual matters in their own lives. And we're not talking here about doctrine. And I'm not hitting doctrine, but sometimes Roman Catholics think that that's the essence of the Catholic Church. A very good friend of mine, when her daughter stopped going to Mass on Sunday, she said she was just heartbroken, the mother was, and she said, she's left the church. I said, Betty, she hasn't left the church. She has left liturgical practice. And then I said to her, and I went down the line with the 10 Commandments. You know, does she kill? Does she steal? You know, I went down and I said, you raised her. It's not something just that she does. And besides that, there are some religious, liturgical practices that need change. All right? And the church is constantly changing them. Not always the way some people like, but the church is constantly changing. So we talk here then, religious and spiritual matters in their lives, and that means transcendent things. The dignity of human beings, whether we use religious language or not, that's a religious concept. It's a cultural concept, but it's a religious concept. I would go so far as to say what is profoundly human is always religious. Always religious. There's a religious dimension. That does not mean you can just do with it whatever you like. No, but it has a religious dimension to it. Everything. Sex. Sex is not just fun, it's religious. The giving of oneself to another, most intimate giving oneself. I realize it doesn't always happen, but there's a religious dimension to that. This invitation encourages deeper spiritual awareness of everything. We're in this culture now, the beauty of the natural world has become, in a very real sense, a place where we have religious experience. Is it an experience of God? Who's to say no? And before I answered that, I should have said, what do we mean by an experience of God? An experience of beauty? An experience of goodness? Right? Those are experiences of God. But God, again, when we look at these things, our understanding of God becomes very obvious. God is not an old man with a beard. But God is beauty. And God is transcendent. And God is goodness. And we have all had those experiences. And we have all been that experience to someone else. We have all touched the lives of other people and made them better. We have all done that by the way we have treated them. Notice it all comes down, all of these principles come down, not to what the church says, not just that, but it all comes down to how do we accept and appreciate reality. The reality of being human, the reality of being part of the natural world. We don't just live on earth, we are earth. You are looking at what the earth can produce. It might take 14 million years, but this is what happens. Just like I'm looking at what earth produces. And then no force from the outside has come in and stirred the pot. It did it all by itself. We are the fruit, you and I, of the powers of evolution. So we're all part of it. Now, is that a scientific statement? Of course it is. Is it a religious statement? Of course it is. It depends, of course, on the eyes with which you see everything. If you got a narrow understanding of God, then it's not a religious statement. But by itself it is. And people can see the religious dimension to it. There was a picture hanging at the Mother House not too long ago. And it was a flower, a beautiful flower. And the caption on the picture was, "Be still and know that I am God." And it's a flower. And yet, there's a message there, a religious message. Why do you think people sit and watch the sunset or the sunrise or both? What do they think? If they think somebody's coming or going? Or the whole idea of basking in the sun, not simply to get a tan, but feeling the warmth. Or again, friends, why do we touch each other? Now, sometimes because if you don't, we'll fall. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a loving embrace. Why do we do that? Because somehow or other there is something transcendent in all of that. And growing up means we discover what it means and we make the most of it. That's what growing up means. Everybody gets older. Some grow up as well. So this invitation engenders a deeper spiritual awareness and understanding of the religious tradition and a more profound sense of conscience to guide one's life and work. Wherever you go, you're going to deal with people. Even hermits deal with people. Somebody's got to make the food, or somebody's got to get what they need in order to survive. We deal with people. We deal with each other. We cannot live without each other. The only thing we really do alone is die. Because the person who's dying is alone. Even though there's a crowd around. You know what I'm talking about. They're going through something you're not going through. We're not born alone. There's always somebody there when we're born. But when we die, we are alone. And it is interesting. Our whole lifetime, really, we're not alone. Or we don't have to be alone. I go back again to this. Faith, seeking, understanding. And I've been hitting doctrine. And also saying, I don't want you to think I don't like doctrine, but I do. Scripture's not doctrine, but it is religious literature. It is handed down tradition. That's what doctrine is. It's handed down tradition. And it's our understanding of God, our understanding of Jesus, our understanding of what is this all about, what's the purpose of creation, our understanding of that constantly changes as we do. And it constantly grows. And what was adequate answers that, when we were kids, or when we were younger than we are, what was adequate at that time because of our understanding, our ability to understand, and also adequate because this is all we had to understand at that time. We do the best we can. And the honest person who never says, I don't know, is not honest. It's not honest. I mean, we may not understand why things work the way they do. And so we say, I don't know. And we say that if we're honest, in every single field of endeavor. And we make mistakes because we don't yet know. But we keep pushing, keep trying to advance. That drive is also in every one of us. And all of that is part of what it means to be human. But and many people think it's a fundamental life force. It's not just in human beings. It's in nature. It is because we are of this world that we all feel that surge to go forward, to continue on. So as we develop culturally, as we all develop intellectually, as we develop, and that doesn't simply mean that we've got the right answers. It might mean we ask the right questions. And there are some fundamental questions that we all ask. And they are the fundamental questions. And think about it. In a certain sense, they're the only questions that there are. Who, what, when, where, how, and why. Those are the questions of life, always. And you think about it, every question you ask belongs in one of those categories. That is, of course, if you're still alive. If you're still alive. So everything is seeking understanding in a certain sense. This is the story or the definition of theology. It's also, I think, the definition of growing, maturing, advancing, seeking understanding in whatever field of endeavor is yours. Again, I want to say, this is not in conflict with cultural seeking understanding. It's not in conflict. And sometimes you can't tell. I mean, who sits down and does this and asks the question, is this a cultural question or is this a religious question? But the more we realize the dimensions that are part of us and part of life, the more we realize that, the more we will see that in a certain sense, the joy of being alive is asking those questions. Seeking a kind of understanding, more understanding. That's what education is all about. You know, seeking understanding. I mean, I've been in the educational, what noun should we use? Profession. That's a good word to use. I've been in it long enough to realize there are times when you just want to get the test over and the grade done. You know, and that's too bad, but we all have had that experience. And part of that experience may be that we think we are being put upon. Those are your questions as well. And if they're not, I really feel sorry for you. I feel sorry if you're not inquisitive. And not because you won't do well at Marian, but because you won't do well in life if you're not inquisitive. If you don't ask why, or how can I help you? How? Or what should I do? You got all the answers for your questions? No, all of that is seeking. We're constantly seeking. And we learn from what other people have taught us, because they had to learn. They always say, of course, the best teacher is experience. And that's true, but it's not the only teacher. It's not the only teacher. Unless you understand it this way, anything that anyone has ever taught you, they have learned from somebody else who taught them, who learned from somebody else who taught them. So in a certain sense, experience is the only teacher. Because we collect what has worked, and that's part of the tradition, that's part of the culture. We collect what has worked, and in a certain sense, it's laying it all out. Now, you got a question, which one of these might answer it? That's what handing down the tradition is. And you have handed down the tradition. Whatever your experience of life is, you have already participated in handing down the tradition. You certainly have shaped it. You have shaped the tradition. Marian College is not, I mean, I've never had an experience of Marian University. I went to Marian College. And I'm going to tell you, what I see at Marian University is not what I saw at Marian College. It better not be. Because it has changed, and it has evolved, and it has gone forward in a very real sense. And my experience of Marian is history. But you have learned things here from people like me who were here. Both, I taught here for a while, so not simply as a teacher, but students shape the milieu. Students shape it. Don't ever underestimate your power in making an impression on culture. Don't ever underestimate your power on making some kind of an imprint on theology. You may not think you know theology, but when you start asking those profound religious questions and demanding or looking for answers, you are participating in this endeavor. All right? And this tradition is ours. The Judeo-Christian tradition. So it's not simply Roman Catholic. It's Lutheran, and it's Jewish, and it's a Presbyterian. So we have some commonality, but again, don't ever underestimate your participation in shaping some kind of culture, shaping some kind of mindset, shaping some kind of tradition that affects the lives of others. And don't think that you do not make an impression on your professors, because you are their life at this point in life as well. We're all in it together, which means we all benefit. And it also means we all have responsibilities. You cannot cop out of this. That to me is closing the door on the future. And that's precisely what you don't want to do. And I didn't say should not do. You don't want to do that. You want an open future. You want to be involved to the extent that you can and take advantage. Take a hold of, grab a hold of whatever you can. And that's good and that's healthy, and that can also be a very religious, depending upon your purpose for doing it, a very religious endeavor. Suck out of the moral of life, like Thoreau. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately. I went to Marian because I wished to live deliberately. All right, that's how you live. And that tradition certainly is very much a part of our Catholic tradition. It's not separate from culture. Sometimes they are in opposition. Sometimes you fight yourself. But it is a strong bond that brings us together as a community and enables us to move forward, knowing we're not doing it alone. So, are there any questions? All right. You want this?
Anyone? Anyone? See how old you are? Bueller? Bueller?
Questions or comments?
I'll start.
Fine.
When you're talking about where's heaven, how are we, theology, a statement that kept coming up is we are of this world. And what does that mean then when we talk about other, maybe an old mindset that I had, things are separated? Is our world truly separated from what this idea of heaven is? Is our world truly separated from, or is it like levels of consciousness, or is it levels of understanding? Or, that's, for me, as I've gone through this journey, that's, being of this world really starts to open up of what that means about other faith and belief.
Something that cosmologists, there's a word that cosmologists use all the time. And rather than talking about things that are woven together, they call it entanglement. Which means that everything, is part of something. And if it all came, well, according to the Big Bang, it was just the singularity, and then it just, whatever that was, but it all began as part of one thing. we think we recognize, sometimes what we see we don't really see. For example, if you look at your hand, it's solid, but science tells us it's not. Atoms are not solid. Atoms are basically more space than material, and yet it's solid. So we look at this and we think, this is solid, but it's not. So I say that because, and that's one thing that, and I'm not a scientist, so I was just fascinated when I first learned that. We don't always see things the way they really are because they are either so intricate or they are so expansive we can't get it all in our view. Our human limitation, which is not sinful and not something to be ashamed of. Our human limitation makes us stand in awe. I really think that probably one of the best prayers, and I think maybe it should be the last thing on our lips when we die, is, and if there is any speaking, if God has anything to say, I think it's one word: surprise. Because it's bigger than we are, and it's not bad to be small and limited and vulnerable. It can't be. That gives everybody else around you a chance to take care of you, if you want to think about it. And I say that facetiously, but it's also true. If anybody was really so damn self-sufficient, they could live alone without us. And what a sad thing if you would ever have to experience that. So I think, it's such a, and that's just one continent in one solar system of all, multiple solar systems. How many million of solar systems are there in the Milky Way? And we talk about a universe. There's no such thing as a universe. It's universes of universe. And here we are. So I don't know if, I don't know how to answer your question.
I think of Whoville, and I also think of Men in Black. When you think of Whoville, everything is happening in such a small place, and then in Men in Black, the galaxy's on the neck of the cat.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what cat are we on the neck of?
Exactly.
Or what speck are we on?
Right,
something?
exactly.
Yeah.
And our tradition tells us, with all of this vulnerability and all of this inadequacy, that we are loved by the power responsible for all of it. We are loved by the beauty, not simply a God who's beautiful. Some would say God is beauty, and God is goodness, and we're that important. This little thing right here, and that little thing there, these wonderful things. That's part of our religious tradition, and that's science as well.
As you said before.
Yeah, that's right.
I do have a question. When you were talking about birth isn't something that we do alone, but death is, I'm not sure I understand why we die alone, because we don't really know what's on the other side. There could be someone or something there waiting for us. So at what point are we really alone?
Well, I haven't been there yet, so I don't know. And I'm not trying to back off. But the point that when I said that, the point that I was making, when we gather, as we should, when we gather around somebody who is dying, sometimes we're doing that because we don't want to let them go. Sometimes we're doing it for our sake. Sometimes we're doing it for their sake because we don't want them to feel alone. But when they pass out alone. When they pass out of our existence, they do that alone. They're not taking anybody with them. That's what I meant.
Someone on the other side.
That's the question, right there. That's the and that's where faith comes in. That's where faith comes in. The great philosopher Pascal and his great, says, not everybody believes that there's anything after that moment. But he said, I would rather live as if there is something and be wrong than not live that there is something and be wrong. Which is very good philosophy. Live a full life, then at least you've had a full life. But if you haven't lived a decent life and you're wrong.
I think I was told, just internal with my wife and stuff, we talk about angels, guardian angels, and almost to the belief with this faith, if you believe in that, then it's true to you. If you don't, then it might not be true, but the reality is we're not going to know until later. But how your existence goes and how do you live?
I would ask a question. Why are guardian angels so important?
The answer that
I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, the belief that you always have somebody with you, that you always have a spirit with you, which is what God is.
Exactly.
So it's a way to personalize.
That's it.
That
It's a metaphor.
I'm done.
I mean, really,
No, but
that's metaphorical language.
So when you were in 4th grade and you figured out what everything is and you laugh at yourself right now, what was that? Because that's kind of what I think about in my life as I've gone through with believing these things and now having a different take. If you would share some of that insight as a 4th grader, that'd be fun.
Well, I'm not quite sure what your question. I make a joke of it because what that kid was dealing with. Give me a break, Okay. However, she was dealing with something. I mean, what do you expect from a 4th grader?
Or 54-year-old.
At least I didn't believe in Santa Claus anymore.
Yeah.
But even that, Santa Claus, of course there's the Santa Claus. Somebody who gives constantly, never asks for anything back, gives wonderful presents and what is good for you. I mean, it's a beautiful metaphor. The same thing with the Easter Bunny. It's not an Easter elephant. Why is it a rabbit? Because they multiply. They're so, life-giving. I mean, the metaphors are beautiful, but we stop with the sometimes we don't go deeper to find out what it means. But they're very strong, and I would never find fault with anybody. I don't use angel language. Okay, I use different language. Just talk about the same thing. Yeah. Anyone else? Huh?
One more. Yes.
I just have a comment, and I'm going to have you announce it.
Dear person behind me, the world is a better place with you in it. Lots of love. The person in front of you.
Where did you get that?
Online.
The answer, huh? Online. Anyone else? Questions, comments, observations?
All right, well, that looks like a wrap, you guys. Thank you so much for coming. If we can thank Sister Dianne again. And I just wanted to make 2 quick announcements. Actually, maybe 3. So we're going to update the schedule of her talks. So the last talk was scheduled for early May, which is after the students are gone. So we knew that, but we thought that that would be okay. But now that we have so many students coming, we wanted to push those dates up. So we're going to add April 7th and take off May 2nd. Okay, so we'll keep you posted. Don't worry about it. Our next gathering here for this is February 24th. February 24th, she'll be talking about hospitality and tradition, I think. Did you have a...
Yeah, and here, this is a challenge to everybody. Students, also for community members, sisters, and also staff, faculty. challenge is bring one other person. I know some of you are coming because it's part of a class, but I would say come again, but challenge you to say in the Marian way, bring one other person. Let's pack this place for the next time. All right? And once again, big round of applause for Sister Dianne.
The lady says, that really makes your head spin. But she's like smiling. Thank you so much. I don't think so at all. I think it all makes sense. And I mean, you provided good balance there. I'll let you do it. All right. Thank you very much.